We are starting the Sanhedrin. We are on the Samach Zion, I believe. Samach Zion, Omid Aleph. We are on the bottom, the Mishnah. Samach Zion, Omid Aleph, the second Mishnah, Hamadiach. So 6073 in the art scroll. Last week we were discussing the halachas of a mesit, a person who convinces other Jews to serve Avodah Zarah. And this week our mission starts off about a guy who convinces most of the city to serve Avodah Zarah. A hamadiach, someone who causes people to leave Hashem and serve with the Zara, and creating that city to become an ir hanidacha. So he's a hamadiach. Who is this? Someone said, "Let's go and serve with the Zara," and he's chayav skila for doing that. He gets stoning. Now the Mishnah moves on. Hamechashev, the sorcerer, the warlock, the witch, the wizard, who performs actual magic, ha'oseh ma'aseh, who uses ruach hatuma, who uses black magic, chayav, it's chayav skila, stoning. Below ha'oches et ha'enayim, but not one who merely creates illusions, not someone who just optical illusions and makes it look like he's doing magic, but he's not actually using ruach hatuma to make it. He doesn't get stoning. I mean, the Rambam says he would get makot, he would get the lashes, the Rabbanan. Rabbi Kiva Omer Meshum Rabbi Husha. Echad loket patur ve'echad loket haya. There are two people who use magic to collect cucumbers from a field. The cucumbers are growing in the field, and two of them, one uses magic to collect, and the other one uses magic to collect. One is hayav skila, and one is not. Who's who? If he actually used the ruach hatuma and he used black magic to actually collect them, then he's chayav skila. But if he somehow made it look like he was doing like an optical illusion, if he didn't actually do any maaseh, then he gets makot, but not skila. And that is the Mishnah. So Amar Yehuda Amarav. This Hamadiach that's in our Mishnah is talking about the ir hanidachat. And so the halacha l'maisa, the practical for one who is a mesit, who tries to make individuals serve with the zara, and someone who tries to make a whole city serve with the zara, they get the same punishment, which is skila. Now, moving on to Hamchashev, the sorcerer, the magic person. Tanu Rabbanan, Machashefa. How you know about magicians? It says Machashefa lo techayeh. Don't let the Machashefa, the sorcerer, live. Now, Machashefa is echad ish ve'echad isha. Doesn't make a difference if it's a man or a woman who's performing the magic. Im kemat tavlo Machashefa. Why does it say the feminine language of the witch and not the wizard? Because women are mostly involved in sorcery. Why would that be? So the way they explain is that I saw in the Zohar, I didn't see it in the Zohar, but Mesifta brought down from a Leket Shmuel, who's a commentary on the Zohar, who says that when the Nahash was with Hava, somehow that whole sin, that whole episode there, created an extra level of tumah in the woman. Someone in shul wanted to say the woman has more tumah because every month she goes through the process of nidam, and this extra tumah is what the magic is attached to, and therefore they're the that's why it's machashev, because they were the more prevalent practitioners of magic versus the men. Not to say that the men couldn't be a wizard, but it was more prevalent amongst the women. Fine. That's what the Gemara says. Mitatan bameh. How would they get executed? What's the punishment? So we said in the Mishnah skila. We're going to see it's actually a machloket. Halacha ma'isa, it would be skila. That's what the Rambam says, like Rabbi Akiva. But let's see the Braita. Mitatan bameh. What's their punishment in? Rabbi Yosef Nemar Khan. It says over here in this passage, mechashef lo techayah. Don't let a wizard or witch live lo techayah, but and it says over there in Sefer Devarim, where it talks about the Jews going into Eretz Canaan and killing out the Canaanim. It says, Lo techayeh kol neshama. Don't let any neshama live. Lo techayeh. So, Ma'ala Messiah. By the Canaanim, we know it's a sword. So, Av Kan B'Thayev. So, too, a practitioner of magic, of real black magic, also gets the sword. Rikiva says, no, says here, don't let the witch or wizard live. It says over there, im behema im ish lo yichya. It says that a man or an animal are not allowed to go up on Har Sinai when Hashem is going to come down with the 10 commandments. And it says behema im ish lo yichya. If someone crossed the boundary on Har Sinai, he would get skila. So afkan beskila. So too here, he gets skila by the magic. I'm learning lo techayeh lo techayeh. The pasuk says machashefa lo techayeh. By the Canaanim lo techayeh. That's the lashon I'm using. But you're learning lo techayeh by a wizard. Milo yichya and lo yichya, not lo techayeh. Lo yichya by Har Sinai. That's not the same verbiage. Only Rekiva. True, the verbiage might not be exactly the same, but I need Danti Yisrael Yisrael. I'm learning halacha about a Jew from a Jew, right? A Jew wasn't allowed to go in Har Sinai by the border, and they would get skila. So to a Jew doing sorcery would get skila. Because by a Jew we have 4 modes of execution. Therefore, I have to learn which one. But you're learning a halacha. If a Jew becomes a sorcerer, what punishment they get, but you're learning that from the punishment Goyim get. But by Goyim, the Torah gives them only one mita on top of Samach Zayin Amud Bet 67b1. Only one. We already saw this that the guy if Ivan Hashem is like Noach, he gets only the saif and he gets the sword. We did see an exception or two if he does certain sins with a Jewish woman, but more than that, he always gets saif. He always gets the sword. So it's a good machloket. Each one has a good point why he's learning the way he's learning. So Ben Azai Omer says, Nemar, different way. It says, don't let a witch live. Ben Nemar, then right afterward it says, Kol yumas. Anyone who lays with an animal gets killed. Mot yumat means with stoning. So Samchu in Yonloi. They see the Torah put the 2 topics together. We know that if someone lays with an animal, skila, we already saw this. So too, since it's 2 psukim right next to each other, so too a machashev, a witch, a wizard, also with skila. Amar Loi Rabbi Yehuda, v'chimipnei shesamchula natzia lezev skila. Just because the psukim are next to each other, that means we kill them with the same punishment. Where that's not something we learned. We never learned it that way. Ela oviadoni b'cha mechashevim ayu v'lama yatsu l'hakshevim lama l'cha ma oviadoni b'skila af mechashev b'skila. Okay, what does it mean? So we have something we say in the Rabbi Shmuel Omer every morning. Take a look at note 7. Called davar sheb'chlal. Anything that's in the generalized. The yatzim and the kal and it goes out from the generalization to teach something. It doesn't go out to teach only for itself. It goes out to teach on everything. Okay, we have don't let a witch or wizard live. Okay, it doesn't say how to kill them exactly. Then it says Ova Yadoni, practitioners of Ova Yadoni, and there we learned Ova Yadoni based on the words there, right? The pasuk says that you kill them with stoning. So if you kill Ova Yadoni with stoning, which is a type of magic, and it comes out, right? And that's what we said. If something comes out to teach us a certain lesson, we apply it to the whole thing, the whole generalization. Since Ova Yadoni, which is a type of magic, comes out to tell us they get stoning, it applies to the whole type of magic. Everyone gets stoning. That's the way we learn it from. Now the Gemara says, "Rabbi Yehuda Nami." Is this also according to Yehuda? Leo Ova Yadoni shnei ketuvim boin ke'echad. V'chol shnei ketuvim boin ke'echad ein mein lamdin. So the Gemara says, really? Hold on. It's true, we say, when a lesson comes out. We apply it to the whole category, but hold on one second. Here, it's not one lesson. It's 2 lessons that are coming out. Ov and Yidoni. Now, if you wanted to take something out to teach me the lesson for the whole thing, you do it on one, not two. You do it on two. You're telling me that these two are different. The rest of the category is also different, and these two are different from the rest of the category. You tell me one, then I say, okay, it's not different from the rest of the category. You're just showing me in this item how everything else is applied. So if we do it on two, then there's a reason to say it's only these two and none of the others. So how can you apply it to all? Because it says over Yadunu. Rabbi Zechariah, Ad Amra, that must tell us, Kesavar Yehuda, that what does Yehuda hold? No, even if it's two. Even if two are excluded from the generalization and teaches you something about those two, it still applies to the whole set. Kesavar Yehuda, we do learn, and therefore we learn. It even says over Yadoni, we learn that that's a skila. So we say all the sorcery type of things that are real type of magic, all of them would get skila. Okay, fine. That teaches us how the punishment for the machashev. Okay, now we're gonna come to some interesting Gemara, interesting stories, some good lessons. So let's take a look. Amar Rabbi Yohanan, Lama Nikra Sheman Kishafim. Why is a wizard, a witch, power of sorcery, why are they called Kishaf? Kishafim, why? You know why? Shemachishin Pamalya Shelmala. Because they contradict what they're trying to do in Shemaim. Very interesting. Can it be possible if something goes against Hashem's will? Gemara says, Ain't Omnu Vado. But we have a pasuk says nothing besides Hashem. Amar Rabbi Hanina, Tfilu Dvar Kishafim. Rabbi Hanina says, even for magic, they can't go against Hashem. So what are you telling me? This magic it's kishif because shemachishin pamali shemal. There was a certain woman. She sought to take dust from beneath Rabbi Hanina's feet. Amarla, he said to her, zili avdi. If you're successful to make sorcery against me, try to do it. Ein ol milvado kitiv. Because I know there is none besides Hashem. Gemara says, Aini, but is it so? Why is it called Kishif? Because they go against the upper legion. So how come Chanina saying there's nothing against Eino Milado? But you see, it does say a statement from Yochanan that they could go against the Shemayim. Shanim Chanina, the Nafesh Zechute. Chanina was different. He has a certain zechut. Okay, so very perplexing. Very perplexing. We're going to have to unperplex it and make it understandable. How does this whole thing work? Is there really kochot that can go against Hashem? Right? And only Rabbi Chanina it doesn't apply to? So the Nefesh HaChaim, right? Nefesh HaChaim believes Rabbi Chaim Moloshin. He explains as follows. He says, there is a level in the world called Teva, right? Called nature. And Hashem put nature into work. A natural flow of events. Water to make something wet, sun to make something dry. There's a natural flow of events. Says, Hashem put also in the world that Ruach HaTumah, the evil spirits, the black magic, could manipulate nature. That's possible. And that's what it means, Pamalia Shilmala, the work of the upper legion, that it could contradict Teva, nature that Hashem set into motion. But it has no standing on the kohot of Kedusha. If something is done through Kedusha, it has no standing. So, this is the way it is now. Rabbi Chanina says, I'm not affected by magic because I don't live in a teva and a nature type of world. Even though Hashem set up nature, I don't see it that way. I see Hashem as being the Ein O Milvado. There's only Hashem. Everything's from Kol HaKedusha. That's why it was Rabbi Chanina whose daughter put vinegar in the candles, and it was lighting because he said, "What do you mean? Whoever made oil light will make vinegar light. I don't live in a nature world. I live in a Kol HaKedusha world, of an Ein No Milvado world, that there's only a God, and there's nothing else. There's no nature. There's Hashem's hand, the Yad Hashem. That's the way I see the world. And when he sees the world that way, he doesn't, because miracles are usually understood is when something that's out of nature happening. He doesn't see it as a miracle. He sees it as the hand of God. So Rabbi Yochanan says the sorcerers have a power to go against the heaven, but not in the case of Kol Kedusha, but in the heavenly setup of the world of nature. That's true. They could manipulate nature, but they cannot manipulate Kol HaKedusha. And that was the schut of Rabbi Chanina. Because no one ever uses their schut to have miracles. Or Akum Vinu, Parshas Vayishlach, and Parshas Vayetze, he says, what's it called? Oh my zechutim, Hashem must have protected me so much. I have no more zechutim. He's getting all worried. So how could Rabbi Chanina here? It says, did not fish zechutei. He has a schut, so he can stand against the magic. No, so it explains that what? That his zechut was not that he had zechutim. His zechut is that he realized the world was the world of kedusha, of an ein o milvado. Right? They say about the Brisker Rav that he had to escape Germany during World War II. He told his family to focus on the pasuk ein od milvado, and they were able to walk in front of Nazis and SS people, and they were able to not be seen. Ein od milvado. And once one of his daughters stopped thinking for a second, something happened, and she stopped thinking, and immediately the soldiers started to run after them. They had to refix their focus of Ein Od Milvado, that there is no one other than Hashem, and they were able to escape. Right? These stories are brought down, true stories. But this is people who live on an Ein Od Milvado plane, right? Ein Od Milvado reality. And unfortunately, a lot of us, like Rabbi Yochanan says, the magic could affect us. Why? Because we don't live in that plane. We're living on nature. We realize there's nature and stuff like that. And therefore, magic is able to manipulate nature, but not manipulate the koach hakedusha, an ein o milvado state. And so that gives us somewhat of an explanation of that Gemara. I'm sure we can make a whole long shir out of it, but to give us a nutshell of what's happening. Amar Rabbi Ayavu bar Nagri Amar Mihiya baraba. It says in the parshiot of the Ten Makot, it says Belatehem, and it says Belahatehem. Right? When they're copying the magic that Moshe Rabbeinu is doing, the miracles. So it says sometimes Belatehem, and sometimes it says Belahatehem. Which one's which? So Belatehem, Elu Maaseh Shidim. Then this is when it says Belatehem, it's not that they're actually doing magic. They can't do the magic, but they employ, by using certain names and certain incantations, they use demons to perform their magic. Bilatehem. So they're exporting, the third party is doing the magic for them. They're not doing it exactly, right? Bilahatehem, when it says Lamed Hey, Elu Maaseh Cheshufim. This is when they're doing it themselves. Therefore, it says in Sefer Bereshit, when Hashem kicks out Adam and Chava from Gan Eden, so he makes a sword that revolves there. It says ve'et lahat acherev hamid hapechet, and the lahat of a revolving sword to guard the tree of life. It says lahat. Lahat means it's self magic, self doing. It's not using shedim. It's not using demons. Amar Abaye, the kafed amana shed. If a sorcerer, how do you know if a sorcerer, a witch or wizard is using demons to perform the magic, or they're doing the magic on their own? So, if he's using a certain utensil, he's always using a certain utensil, then he's using demons. He needs a certain thing to get the demon. He's calling the demon through this vessel, and they're doing his bidding. The lo kapid amana kishafim. But if he doesn't require a specific vessel, specific utensil, then he's doing his own magic. Okay, either way, using a shade, says the art school in note 26. The person who does it is liable to stoning. That's the Yad Ramon, the Meiri. Wonder what the Yeridea 179:16. Let's take 1 second to take a look at this. Look at this halacha regarding using the shade, because if you do actual magic, you get stoning if you got the warning and everything. What about if you don't do actual magic, but you're using a shade? Ma'aser shadim aser. Using a shade is aser. It says over here. Let's see what is over here. It doesn't bring down if they get skila or not. Okay. Let me see one other spot. Hold on. Don't go anywhere. We have to talk about another thing about a shade in a moment. Another halacha about a shade. But let's just see for a second if he brings anything down here. Doesn't talk about using a shade either over here. Okay, so we'll have to go with what Meiri says. He does get skila, but here's an interesting halacha brought down over here, and this is in the Shulchan Aruch, 179. Okay, and it says as follows: "V'yesh mishamater lihishael bahem al geneva v'chayotze b'zeh." Some say if you see a shade, you're allowed to ask him questions about where did something disappear to, where did something get stolen go to. Meaning you're not doing a action through the shade, rather you're asking him a question. Okay, and the time I had to this is what the Shach says. You're not doing an action through the shade. You are just asking him questions. Then further on, it says over here, some say if you make them swear to do something based on the names of Hashem, that is also mutter. And explains the Vilna Gaon, because it's like using the Sefer Yitzira. You're doing stuff with Kedusha, using Hashem's names. And we call Makon. However, says the Ramah, we call Makon. Most people who use shadim, even in a mutter way, ain't in niftar mehem b'shalom. They don't leave them in peace. Basically, they die with problems. Therefore, someone who wants to watch his soul will not have any doings with the shadim. Okay, interesting halachas about using shadim. Okay, in the permissible fashion. Even then, you want to stay away from it. Amar Abayah, hilchot kishafim, hilchot Shabbat yesh mehen beskila. Hilchot magic is like Hilchot Shabbat. Some of them you get skila. V'yeshman pater of aser. Some of them you don't get skila, but they're aser. V'yeshman muter lechatchila. And you have those that are muter lechatchila. Okay, stuff that are forbidden from the Torah to do on Shabbat, the avot melachot, and they're told you get stoning. Stuff that are forbidden by Rabbanon, right? You're not allowed to do them, but you don't get stoning. And then there's sometimes cases where, for example, if an animal walks into your house or to your barn, you're not trapping them, but if you close the door afterwards, the deer stays inside, you're allowed to do that. So there are some cases, it looks like malacha, that you're allowed to do. So the same thing by magic. If you actually do the actual magic with black magic, you get skila. If you just did optical illusion, potter, you're not getting skila. Aval aser, you could get makot. You're not allowed to do that. Mutter lechatchila k'rechani Rabbi Oshia. What's mutter? Type of magic is mutter. Like Rechani Rabbi Oshia. What? Kol mali shabta have oski b'ilchot yitzira. They would learn from the Sefer Yitzira every Shabbat, every Erev Shabbat, when we bring lahu iglat tilta. And while they were learning, they created a very tasty calf, and then they would eat it on Shabbat. So using a Sefer Yetzirah is not considered magic, but it looks like magic, and therefore it's mutter. It says on the halacha by day Sefer Yetzirah mutter afil asos maaseh. You're allowed to use Sefer Yetzirah to do something. Then he brings here from the shach the emir of Bizman Hazeh Asr La'asos Kain. Today, even using the Sefer Yetzirah is also forbidden. Okay, also forbidden. Looks like you want to stay from everything that can look magical. I'm not sure what the shach's reason is, but that's what he brings down from the shach. Okay. Amar Rav Ashi. Some stories about magic happening. Amar Rav Ashi. I saw Karna's father blow his nose violently, like you see some people blowing their nose very violently. But what happened when this guy blew his nose? And expel pieces of silk cloth from his nostrils. He'd blow his nose and silk would come out. I wouldn't stop blowing my nose if such a case was happening. And they said, this is the finger of Hashem, right? When the lice came down, the kinim. Mikan, from here we see, they were using the shadim, and they couldn't make lice. Shows us that they cannot make creatures smaller than a barley corn. Rav Papa Amar, Elohim, by God. Shadim cannot create anything. What they do is they bring from one place to another. They transport, right? Magic. They use magic to transport stuff, to conjure things up, but they're not actually creating anything. But this one, small being, they cannot bring. For whatever reason, they cannot bring small things. It has to be large creatures. They respond to the demon's call and travel towards him. Right? It says Rashi in the Torah's Chaim over here. It says Rashi. Smokers are difficult to conjure since they lack the strength to traverse great details, great distances. That's Rashi. Okay, so therefore, they said it's God's hand because we cannot bring it here. I saw an Arab merchant. He got to the gamlo. He took a sword and killed out his camel and dismembered it. And then he rang a bell, and the camel got up. When this happened, was there blood and the innards of the animal on the ground? If not, they never actually killed him. It was all an optical illusion. He went to Alexandria in Egypt, to Mitzrayim. He bought a donkey. When he went to the stream to give it water, make a drink, Pashar, the magic cell dissolved, and his donkey turned back into a piece of wood. Amrle. So he went back to them, and he said, give me back my money. He warns the idiot who wouldn't give it back to you. Is there anybody who would buy something from Alexandria without first testing it over water? Apparently, water somehow negates the magic. Okay? Water somehow negates the magic. And by the way, that's a reason why we wash our hands early in the morning with water. Right? We wash until Yadayim right away. I'm just told on Shabbat, unfortunately, some people are not makbid on this, are not careful on this. They're very careful. Ruach HaTumah can go on the hand. And the Ruach HaTumah can convince people to do crazy things. And it's very important that a person washes his hands until Yadayim early in the morning. This way, it gets rid of that Ruach HaTumah. Why does water work this way? It must be that water has some, kedusha. You could go to the mikvah and become tahar, right? Mayim is compared to Torah. There's many such remazim. It says over here, "Ma'asik shafim b'shaydim nemuchim b'mayim chayim ki b'shem yisod atuma." V'hem borchim ha'mayim chayim sheyosoda mitzadik kedusha. Because water, that's alive water, comes from the tzadik kedusha. Moshe Nemar, oti azavu mikor ma'im hayim. And it says by Tomei mate. Shetaratu b'mei chitat. You have to spray water on him. Shemayim chayim dafka. Biyun Yaakov katav shezu hakavana besukim lahashem haaretz umloah tevel v'yoshvei ba. כי הוא על ימיים יסדה, והמדריכננה שבתחילה אמר שלה, היא הארץ יום אמר, העומר כדת המינים שאין ממשת בבריאה, אלא הכל בדרך כישוף ואחיזת עיניים. וכך אמר שיסוד אותה על המים, שזה אי אפשר בכישוף. That Hashem's main thing is on the water, because on the water, you can't do any magic. Okay? It's an important thing to know. Water, you can't do magic. Okay. Okay, so now the question is, they told Zaidi, wasn't that you were great, we wouldn't give you back your money. So says the Ben Yoyada, right? The Ben Shchai asks the question, if they know he's so great, why are they messing around with him in the first place? Why are they selling him wood instead of a real donkey? So the Ben Yoyada has one answer, but the Yad Ramag is another answer. Yad Ramag is an interesting answer. He says that the story happened as follows. They didn't know who Zaidi was. Zaidi came, he bought a donkey, he thought he bought a donkey. He was actually a piece of wood. He goes to the water. They see him going to the water to get water. The donkey drinks the water. The donkey turns into a piece of wood. Remember, Zaidi is riding on the donkey. So Zaidi should fall down. But a miracle happened. And Zaidi stayed elevated, levitating in the air. When they saw that, they realized he was a great man. They said, if it wasn't for that fact that you were a great man, we wouldn't give you back a refund, because who buys something here in Egypt, in Alexandria, and doesn't check that it was magical? But they gave him back his refund because they realized he was an Ish Kaddish. Okay? No, there's not such a story. Yadai. Iklalahu Ashbiza. He went to a certain inn. Amrlahu Ashkaya Maya. Give me some water. They didn't give him water. Instead, they gave him flour and water. Kerevu Shatita. They brought him a Shatita drink. Hazard the Kamer Hashan Sifata. When he brought the drink, he saw that the hostess was moving her lips. She was engaged in magic. Shada purta mine. So he quickly spilled a little bit off. She didn't see. They became scorpions. He said to her, you know what? I'm going to drink of yours, you drink of mine. And he gave her some sort of drink. And he pretended not to have discovered her trick. Okay, so what happened? She drank it, and she became a donkey. So he took the donkey and he started riding on her and went to the marketplace. And a friend of hers saw that her other witch friend be turned into a donkey, so she changed her back. And everyone saw that Yana was riding upon a woman in the marketplace, because she was riding on a donkey, but the donkey wasn't a donkey anymore. Now it was a woman, and people saw that. I don't know what to do further with this story. And that is the story that's brought down in the Gemara. Continues the Gemara. It says that a frog came up and covered Egypt. It was one frog. And from that one frog, it filled up the entire land. It was one tziferdea. And it filled the whole land. Akiva, what are you doing talking about Agadic stories? Don't stop talking about Agada. And go learn halachos. That's your forte. Don't do Agada. It was one tziferdea. He croaked out to all the other frogs, and they all came and joined. It's not that it all came from one frog, but one frog made a sound, and all of them came out. This is not the midrash that we're most familiar with. Midrashim say there was one frog, and every time they hit the frog would continue to spew out more and more frogs. So the famous question of the Stipler Gaon was that if they realize you're hitting this frog, more and more little frogs come out, stop hitting the frog. So says the Stipler Gaon, since they were in a state of anger of seeing all these frogs, they kept hitting, because when a person's angry, his mind is not settled. He can't think straight. And even if he sees that hitting causes more, he continues to hit it. Think about it. A person gets angry and he starts lashing out and saying things that can ruin a relationship, that can ruin a friendship. He breaks things. She breaks things. They say things they would never say if they had a rational mind. Because when a person's in the throes of anger and he's in the fit, he doesn't think. That's why so many frogs ended up in all of Mitzrayim, says Stifler Gaon. Okay, moving on. Amar Rabbi Akiva. So Rabbi Akiva said, "You want to know about the cucumbers and the magic? The one who does it with real magic is chayev skila. The one who does it with not real magic is not chayev skila. It gets just makol." Okay, so now V'har Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Yeshua, Gamerle, and we learned it in the Mishnah as saying Rabbi Akiva learned it from Rabbi Yeshua. But is that really true? Ve'hatanya. But it was taught in the Braita. We have a very interesting story now. We end off the Gemara with this very interesting story. This is the continuation of the story of Mitzia. Right, what happened over there? There was a rabbi called Rabbi Eliezer. He had a machloket with the Chachamim about a certain oven, right? And if it was kosher, it wasn't kosher. They said it's tamei. He said it was tahar. He brought proofs. He made miracles happen. A bat kol, a voice from Shemayim, came out and said he was right. But the Chacham said the Torah is not in Shemayim. The Torah is by us, and we're paskening and saying it's no good. He kept saying it was good. Eventually, they had to put him in chayrim, right? Because he's going against the rabbi. He's going against the psak of the Chachamim. And now, and this story picks up where he is about to die. He is very sick. Eliezer got sick on his deathbed. Rabbi Akiva and his friends came to visit him. He was sitting under his canopy. And they were in his parlor. They were outside the room. And they heard that he got very sick on Erev Shabbat. And they not sure if they can go in and see him yet. And Horkanis, Rabbi Eliezer's son, came to take off the tefillin of Rabbi Eliezer. Ga'arbo v'yatza ben zifa. And Rabbi Eliezer was screaming on his son to get out and leave him. And the son left in shame. He said to the Chachamim that came, I believe my father's mind has become mixed up. He's not thinking straight. Rabbi Eliezer heard this. He said to the Chachamim from his room, he screams out, he says, Him and his mother, my son and his mother, have both lost their minds. Okay? And he explains why. And not me that I lost my mind. He says they lost their minds. Why? How can they forget about an Isser Skila, something to do wrong, and you can get Skila stoning? And instead of worrying about that, they're worrying about my tefillin, which you don't get skila. It might even be mutar to wear in Shabbat. Not mutar to wear in Shabbat, but it's definitely not skila. And they're worried about taking off my tefillin. He's very sick. That day, they didn't have time to prepare the food. They didn't light the candles. It's minutes to Shabbat. He says, why are you coming in and taking off my tefillin? You should go and make sure that my wife, that your mother is putting on the candles and putting the food for Shabbat. Okay, that's why he was screaming at his son. Once the Chacham saw that his brains was working, they came in, they sat at a distance of 4 amot. Remember, he's in Chayrim, you're not allowed to sit too close to him. So they sit 4 amot away. Amr Lahem, Eliezer said to them, why did you come? Why are you coming? They said, we came to learn Torah. And why didn't you come until my day of death? What happened all these other days? They said, we didn't have the opportunity. Amr Lahen, he said to them, really, you didn't have opportunity? I would be surprised if you guys would die a natural death. Because you had the chance to learn Torah and you didn't come, you're going to be deserving of a non-natural death. Amr Akiva said to Rabbi Eliezer, Shelimahu, what about me? Amr Allah, he said to him, Rabbi Akiva, Shilcha kashem yishlahen. Your death will be the worst of everyone's. And we know Rabbi Akiva had his flesh cut out of him with iron combs. He took his 2 arms and he folded it upon his heart. Amr, he said, I have 2 arms, they're like 2 Sifrei Torah, and I'm closing them, they're never going to be opened again. I learned a lot of Torah and I taught a lot of Torah. I learned so much Torah from my Rebbe's, but I was like a dog who licked water from a sea, and the sea level didn't drop because of that. I learned so much, but I didn't learn as much as they had. I taught a lot of Torah, but my students only took for me, like when you put an applicator into a tube of eye powder, and you take a little bit of eye powder out, and the rest of it remains down there. That's how much my students took out from me. Below I know 300 halachot about a certain type of tzarat known as beheret. And no one ever asked me a halacha about them. 300 halachot. I learned 300 halachot. Some say 3,000, he said. Halachot. And when they use magic to collect cucumbers. And no one ever asked me about them. Except one time Akiva ben Yosef asked me about collecting cucumbers through magic. That's the connection to our Mishnah, because Rabbi Akiva said you can do magic and get skila, and do magic and not get skila if it's only optical illusion. So I see Rabbi Eliezer teaches him. How come our Mishnah says it's Rabbi Yeshua? We'll deal with that in a minute. But until then, he says, I'll tell you the time Rabbi Akiva asked me, we were walking on the way. Amrali, he said to me, Rabbi, teach me about the planting of cucumbers. I said a magic incantation, and the whole field became full of cucumbers. Amrali said, now show me how magic is used to collect the cucumbers. So Rabbi Amrali, he said to me, Rabbi you taught me how to plant and teach me how they're uprooting. I said an incantation. And all the cucumbers came into one place. So here Eliezer showed him the magic to plant and the magic to collect cucumbers. Amaru law. Now Eliezer is about to die, so they asked him a question. Hakadur va'imus va'kamea utzror hamagoliot umeshkoelet ketanamahu. All these type of items. What is the halacha if they are susceptible to tumah or not? Right? What these things are, they are all objects that are closed. They have an inside. The inside is stuffed. Okay, so they're closed. But if they would get a tear, right, you can use it as a pouch. Think about a basketball, right? Basketball is hollow inside; it's air. You cut the basketball a little bit somewhere. You can use the inside as a pouch, right? So that's the question. If I had a ball and all these type of things that are filled on the inside with something, and they're closed right now, but if they got a hole, you can use them. Is it something that's considered a kalim that can become tamei? He said they can become tamei. Can you be mitire them? If they tear open and now they're used, right? So they only get tamei if they're actually tearing and you're using them. But now they're tiered and you're using them. Can you be mitahir them? Can you put them in the mikvah, make them tar? Even with the stuffing still inside, you didn't take out all the stuffing, right? So the hentimein v'taharatam b'mashehen, and you can put them in the mikvah even if they still have something inside of it. Menal sha'agabe ha'imus mahu. What about the shoe that's on the shoe form? Remember, keli doesn't recount tuma until it's finished as a vessel, as a utensil. So the guy's making a shoe, and he has it on the shoe stand. If you ever in a shoemaker's store, he has like this long thing, has the shape of a foot, and they put the shoe on it, and they work on it. So the shoe is still on it. And he finished the last stitch. Is it a shoe or not? It can become tuma or not. So Eliezer answered, while it's still on the shoe stand, tahor. It doesn't become tuma. It has to be taken off. And when he said the word tahor, his neshama came out of him, because it showed that his neshama was tahor. He used the word tahor, and neshama came out. Amar Yishual Raglav Amar. Yeshua got up on his feet and he said, Hutar haneder, hutar haneder. We're taking away the excommunication. We're taking away the excommunication. Right? Now that he's dead, there's no reason for the excommunication. He's not anymore saying the wrong halachot. He wasn't ish kosher. We're going to take away the excommunication. What's Shabbat? Pagabo Rabbi Akiva min Kesari. Rabbi Akiva meant the funeral procession that went from Kesera to Lod. He was beating himself on his flesh until blood started to fall to the ground. He got up and he said, Avi, Avi, Rechev Yisrael parashav. Father, Father, my chariot of Israel and its horsemen. I have many money, meaning I have a lot of Torah questions. And I have nobody who can exchange the money for me. No money changers to tell me how to use it. Rabbi Eliezer is gone. Rabbi Eliezer is gone. So Rabbi Akiva made himself bleed. Usually you're not allowed to make yourself bleed if you're mourning for someone. The son want to say over here is that he was hurting himself, not cutting himself. Cutting you're not allowed to make, but he's just punching himself. And then eventually, so much punching, the blood started to run, that maybe that is mutter. Some say that it's aser. We don't tend to practice that way. But what do we see from all this story is that Rabbi Eliezer showed him how to do the magic trick for the kishuin, for the kilaknika. So why do we say Rabbi Yeshua in our Mishnah? Rabbi Eliezer, he learned from Rabbi Eliezer. Gemara says, Gimara Rabbi Eliezer. He learned from the Eliezer, the lois sevara. He did not understand it from the Eliezer. Hadag Rabbi Yeshua. Then he learned from Yeshua, and then he learned it and understood it from Yeshua. Therefore, the Mishnah says, Rabbi Yeshua. The last and final question on this Gemara and this whole story of Rabbi Eliezer is, how could he show Rabbi Akiva how to use the magic? He used the magic and made it plant. He used magic and he collected everything. How can you magic? Don't let it live. So how can you do this? Someone who doesn't act with magic is chayav skila. So how can he do this? The Gemara says it's a difference between doing, the difference between teaching. Because it says in pasuk, lo tilmad la'asot. Don't learn how to do it in order to do it, right? La'asot talamad. You're not allowed to learn it in order to do it. But you're allowed to learn in order to learn and in order to paskin, in order to know halacha. If it comes to Sanhedrin and say, hey, this guy did magic, the Sanhedrin dude, the Sanhedrin Dayan, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said it that way. The Sanhedrin Dayan should needs to know what was a real magic or not. The only way to know is to study it. The only way to know is to actually have a practicum in it. He has to know if it was actual magic or not. Indeed, note 34, members of Sanhedrin were required to be expert in the practice of sorcery. They can prosecute sorcerers. So, therefore, Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Eliezer were allowed to learn it and do it, but not to do it, but rather just to learn from doing it. And therefore, they did not be chayav skila. Hadron alach arba mitot, hadron alach arba mitot, hadron alach arba mitot. As Hashem, next week, we start the 8th parak of Ben Sorer Umore. Someone who's a son of who is a son who is known as a Sorer or More. So that is the 8th chapter here in Masechet Sanhedrin. And this book in the Art Scroll takes us all the way up to chapter 9. And then Hashem, we continue next week.
Exactly, brother. I have a quick question.
Yes, go ahead.
About the Rabbi Eliezer and the Chachamim when they had the argument.
Right.
Aren't the Chachamim argue l'shem shamayim to get the truth out of the Torah?
Right.
So if they got the answer from Bat Kol Hashem himself, isn't that proof enough? Whatever they're arguing about, the
Gemara there, the Gemara asks that question and explains, and explains that we have a pasuk that says lo b'shamayim hi, right? The pasuk in Tzavim. It says the Torah is no longer in heaven. When Moshe Rabbeinu took down the Torah, it's no longer in heaven. It is given to the hands of the Chachamim, of the scholars. Therefore, even if Shamayim says the halacha is one way, but the rabbis in the yeshiva are learning it, and they learn the halacha a different way, the halacha l'ma'aseh is like the rabbis in the Beit Midrash, and not like the way they're saying it is in Shamayim. Yeah, that's the power of the Chachamim.
So that proves the power of the Chachamim, but at the same time, it proves that they're not so much interested in the truth.
They are interested in the truth.
It's like whatever they say, and that's how it's going to be because the Torah is down here.
No, the interested is in the truth of what it says to do. You have to work on understanding the Torah. Not that we just go up to Shammai and say, okay, tell me what the halacha is. No, that's not the way it works. The way it works is we have principles. Rabbi Shmuel Omer, there's 13 ways to learn the Torah. We have these principles of how we're supposed to learn Torah and how we're supposed to apply the halacha. And we have to follow that. And if the angels come and tell us to do certain things, that's not necessarily the halacha. I mean, interesting, right? The Rabbi Yosef Karo would have the Magim Mishar, and we have an angel to come and tell him stuff. Just the angel came and tell him stuff doesn't mean they became halacha. The halacha, the Shulchan Aruch, was based on not on what the angel told him, but rather learning through all the Rishonim, all the Gemaras, all the Geonim, and coming up to final pshat. That's the way halacha is learned. That's what they were trying to show and prove.
So why did he have to go put him to Heron because of that?
Because he wasn't backing down. He wasn't backing down. They didn't want to split the Torah to different ways. Obviously, we didn't live in their generation, and we don't understand the full complexity of the situation. But he knew why he was in Cherem, and they knew why he was in Cherem. They had respect for him as a big Talmid Chacham, obviously, and they took him out of Cherem as soon as he died. But while he was alive, they had to keep it. They had to keep it. All right, Shavua Tov. Okay, Shavua Tov.
Sorry.
No, don't worry.
I got cut off.
Okay.
Yes, I got the book. I'm gonna send you Zell later.
Okay, beautiful. When did you get it?
Yesterday, Shabbat.
Okay, you have it now. Was there more books there, or that was the last one?
He just gave me one. I didn't ask.
Rabbi Avner gave you, or?
Yeah.
Very good. All right. Tonight, 8:30.
Tonight, 8:30.
Bezat Hashem. Good stuff. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Shavua Tov.